Okay. Welcome back, everyone, to our third session for this tech share. And we have the privilege to sit down and hear from Darhas Pothina to discuss the best Python open source dashboarding tools for fintech. Darhas is an engineer data architect who has been using PyData Jupyter for a long time. His extensive experience extends into distributed high-performance computing, data engineering, visualization, geospatial analysis, and computational physics. He's been deeply involved in the open source community for over a decade. Prior to his current position as a CTO of Quansight, he worked in the state and federal research labs for over 15 years. He holds a PhD in civil engineering and an MS in aerospace engineering from University of Texas, Austin, and a BA in technology in aerospace engineering from India Institute of Technology, Madras. Welcome, Darhas.
Thank you, Steve.
And what we'll do here is I'm going to turn our time over to you. Very excited for this session. I know a lot of people have read your blog post on this, so I'm going to let you take control, and then I have lots of questions after this when you're ready.
Sure. So today I wanted to give folks a overview of the data visualization landscape, and I'm going to kind of go over why this is important initially. And I've got this graph here, which I'm calling the simplified data science lifecycle, but this is actually the lifecycle for any kind of data analytics or any kind of problem you're solving. Typically, you're going to be asking a question, you're going to be obtaining data, you're going to be exploring the data you have, and then you have to communicate that data. And then usually once you communicate that data, you end up asking a new question, needing to get more data or run more models. And then this is kind of this iterative approach. And the problem is, in most organizations, there's a lot of friction between all of these bits. Like when you ask the question, when you get the data, when you explore, all of these, there's a lot of friction. And one of the big things you need to do in an organization is reduce that friction between all these steps. Visualization of models and data and processes is a big part of reducing that friction, because it is a lot easier to understand complex interactions through visualization. It's a lot easier to share knowledge and explain knowledge through visualizations and interactive dashboards and things like that. And if any of you have ever seen the New York Times, they make some really amazing visualizations during the elections and other things where you can really explore the effects of different parameters and who votes for who and what would happen if the state swung red or blue. And those are really great visualizations, but those are really designed for communication to an external audience. A lot of what I'm going to talk about today is how do you use visualization effectively inside your organization? Because when you're trying to communicate to an external audience, you can take the time to build something really polished and spend a lot of time on UI development and a lot of time honing the message. But when you're doing it internally, speed is of the essence, and being able to quickly communicate with people in your organization and other teams and within your team actually becomes very critical. And with that, I'm going to kind of go over the broad landscape of the types of tools available for visualization. And at a very high level, we can put it into three big categories. You have all the business intelligence tools. These are things like Tableau and Power BI, and there's several others out there. These are very simple to use from a business analyst, data analyst point of view. They're, often you have to pay a license fee for them, but typically you set up charts and dashboard with a couple of clicks. You have wizards, you have a lot of built-in visualizations, and you just kind of do a few clicks. They work really well with tabular data and have connectors to most of the major databases and can work on some very large data sets. But they're also very limited because whatever features they come with and whatever abilities they come with, they are the only features and abilities you have. If you need slightly different types of analysis, if you need to work with data that's not tabular, or if you need to do extra analytics or custom apply a machine learning model to the data before visualizing it, things like that really are not possible. On the other extreme, we have like JavaScript tools. Any visualization that you see in a browser essentially is in JavaScript. Even the BI tools and the Python tools, they compile down to JavaScript, and what you're seeing in the browser is JavaScript. Now, you could write all your visualizations directly in JavaScript, and you could do some amazing stuff. The New York Times does this, other large organizations do this. It gives you the maximum customizability, but it's also very hard to do. And it's very challenging to do quickly. Building the JavaScript applications usually requires a strong software development team, and it's challenging to do really quick prototypes. Python is sort of the sweet middle spot. It requires basic to moderate programming skills. It does require a little bit of programming skills. There are tools to make it easier, but it's accessible to your subject matter experts, your business analysts, your data scientists, the people in your organization that are doing the actual analytical work. These tools are accessible to them, and they can handle very complicated data sets, and you have access to the entire suite of algorithms and tools inside Python, which is vast, and you can connect to any of them. So I'm going to go to the next slide, and this becomes an issue because most organizations have this scaling problem. You have things that you build, like an analyst or a data scientist starts studying, and then they need to move it to the cloud, or they need to share it with someone, or they need to go from static plots to interactive dashboards. And then the whole process stops because the expertise they require to share it with someone, or, we need to write this in JavaScript, put it on our website, that becomes such a large hurdle that you end up with a situation where someone uses something like a Jupyter notebook and prototypes a visualization or some analysis, but then they turn around and say, okay, this is actually really powerful. It's only running on my computer. I need to share it with the other people on my team. I need to share it with other teams in my company. I may even need to share it with a client or externally. Oh, what do I do now? And they're like, okay, now go talk to your software development team who knows JavaScript, and they take your code or they take your visualization, they throw it all away, rewrite the whole thing in JavaScript, get it working with your front-end website. And also you need to find the time of those people, because often the JavaScript team is in a different department and you have to get their time. So this can often take like 6 months to a year in large organizations to go from a quick prototype that you've built that gives you valuable information and being able to share that internally or externally with people. And a lot of the motivation of the dashboarding tools I'm going to talk about are reducing this time to sharing. Now, taking a step back, there are two levels of visualization. One is the actual tools that you use in Python to generate visualizations. And then there are dashboarding tools that let you put these visualizations together into a larger framework. There are many, many, many tools in the Python landscape. And this is just a representation of all of them are interrelated, and some of them are focused on developing charts for printing, like all the purple here are things you want to print. All the ones that connect to JavaScript are the ones which are used for usually interactive visualization online. And so there's a wide variety of tools. And then on top of these tools, there are right now there's basically four major tools for dashboarding. And by dashboarding, I mean putting several plots and several pieces together to show the state of an entire complex situation. Then the big tools are Plotly Dash, Panel, Streamlit, and Voila. This is not the best metric, but it's the best one we can find. If you look at popularity, I've got a chart on the right-hand side, which kind of shows you right now, Voila is fairly low in terms of monthly downloads, but Plotly Dash and Streamlit are almost 1 million downloads a year, like 900,000 or so. And then Panel's about 500,000 downloads a year. And that kind of gives you a rough idea of their popularity in the wild. Now, with that, I wanted to give you a quick overview of what these tools do. The question that often gets asked is, which is the best dashboarding tool? And I'm going to go back and say, no, the question isn't which is the best dashboarding tool. The question is, what problem are you trying to solve? Because all these dashboarding tools, and then I've mentioned this more in my blog post, they started out to solve a particular problem, and they typically solve that problem really well. And then over time, because most of the tools have been in development for the last 4 or 5 years, depending on which tool, they have grown to solve other problems. And one tool may be strongest in one area, but can do the other areas reasonably well. So a part of which one should you choose might be related to which problem you're trying to solve. Now, Voila, in some sense, is the simplest. Voila is the idea that if you're using a Jupyter notebook, you can use Voila with no additional work. It is a view or rearrangement of the same plots which are inside a Jupyter notebook. This has both advantages and disadvantages. The advantages, it's if you're already comfortable with Jupyter notebooks, it's very simple to turn them into a Voila dashboard. The disadvantage is it's tightly coupled with Jupyter, and the customizability is lower. You need to know a lot of HTML, Jinja, and CSS and work out how to interact with Jupyter. It doesn't scale very well, and it only supports single-page dashboards and libraries compatible with a particular tool called IPyWidgets for interactivity. So it's very simple to use, but if you will hit a limiting point very quickly with Voila. Now, Plotly Dash is a tool that comes from Plotly, and it's a dashboarding tool. It's very powerful. It scales very well. It can be used to make some very polished, very nice dashboard. It has some support for big data. It can scale very well to large numbers of people using the dashboards. You have an ability to do multi-page apps and to make it very customized, really customize the look and feel. But really, Plotly Dash requires you to have both people who are writing Python code, and you need someone on your team who understands JavaScript, CSS, and HTML. So if you don't have the group, if you don't have internal expertise, or you don't have a team that can build some nice templates and stuff, Plotly Dash can be a little more tricky to use inside your organization. Also, it primarily has support for Plotly. So if you like the Plotly charting library, it's a decent choice. If you want to use other charting libraries underneath the hood, it's not the best choice. Now, Streamlit has gotten very popular. This is the newest kid on the block in some sense, and it got very popular very fast. And one of its core ideas is, so the previous, like Voila was really focused on giving you a good experience moving from a Jupyter notebook to a dashboard. Streamlit has a different idea. They had a very good interaction between I am writing Python code in an IDE like VS Code or PyCharm, and then you can incrementally build up your dashboard and see how it changes as you write things in your IDE. So if you code in an editor, in an IDE, and want immediate feedback, Streamlit is great. It also has really good defaults that make it look very nice without having to tweak many things. It doesn't scale very well. It doesn't have support for Jupyter. So if you want to use Streamlit apps inside Jupyter, it's tricky. And it doesn't, you can do multi-page apps, but multi-page applications, but you really have a lot of workarounds, and it's not really designed for that. So again, Streamlit is very popular. It can be very powerful for simple dashboards. Now, Panel is one of my favorites, actually, but it is sort of a jack of all trades. It can do a lot of things very well. It supports all major Python visualization libraries. So you can mix plotly plots, matplotlib, like there's like of that big list of Python libraries for charting, you can mix all of them together in a single dashboard. So you could have a plotly plot and a Altair plot and something else all in the same dashboards. It is designed to work well with Jupyter and with scripting, and it scales really well. And it's really designed for. I mean, you need to know HTML and CSS to customize the templates, but it comes with a certain number of templates out of the box, and you can actually build multi-page applications. I would say one of the big differences between Panel and the others is the others are designed more just to build a dashboard. Panel is designed to build what I would call data applications. So if you wanted a multi-page application, you wanted a really complicated application that handled big data and other things, and you wanted all of that built by someone who only knows Python and doesn't know any JavaScript and HTML, Panel is a very good choice for that. I would say right now, and it has some there's a new feature in Panel that I'll get to in a little bit later because it just released yesterday, and I think it's worth talking about. So at a bottom line, this is my overall status. Using Voila and Streamlit are the lowest effort for a newbie, for someone who doesn't know much about plotting, building dashboards. Voila and Streamlit are fairly low effort. With the caveat that Streamlit really requires you to use an editor, an IDE. It doesn't really map to people who are comfortable in Jupyter. Plotly and Panel are the more robust solutions, I think, for enterprise and for big data. Panel is easy to start with, but then when you went to get to more complex data applications, there's a bit of a learning curve there. But the simple stuff is easy. Plotly, I would say, is medium effort. You need a little bit more expertise on the HTML, JavaScript side to get it to work well. But if you have that expertise in-house, it can work very well. And another way to put it is, which one should you use? If you're publishing with Jupyter Notebooks, you can use Voila or Panel. If Jupyter Notebooks are your core initial starting point for your dashboarding and your plotting, Voila and Panel are probably the best options. If you want to work in an IDE editor to create your applications, in a Python file, then you can use Streamlit, Dash, or Panel. Complex apps, and you have the support of a development team, a JavaScript team, and you like Plotly, then Dash is great. But you kind of have to decide Plotly is going to be your main plotting library at that point. If you want multi-page apps and you want data science tools and you want to be able to interact with big data through other tools in the Python ecosystem like Dask and Data Shader, then Panel is really great. One thing I wanted to kind of throw out for Panel, because this just released yesterday, a few days ago, but in the latest version of Panel, there is a new feature that lets you run Panel apps without a web server. Now, let me take a step back here. All these dashboarding tools, which I've shown you, require a web server running in the background, which runs Python. So you have to deploy a web server that runs Python. And when you interact with these widgets and items on the front end, it communicates with the web server, does the calculations in Python, and gives you back the results. And that's really powerful. Now, there's a new technology called WASM and PyIodide that lets Python run in the browser. And with the latest version of Panel, you can export your dashboards to use that new feature, the PyScript and PyIodide and WASM. So you can actually have a standalone HTML file that executes Python in the browser. There's the animated GIF is showing you an example. It's downloading all the Python code it needs and then running it. This isn't applicable in all situations because it requires all that code to be downloaded the first time you use it. But in certain situations where you don't want to run a server and you want to just give someone an HTML file and have complex interactive graphics, it's actually really powerful. I'm excited to see where this goes. It's a fairly new technology. I think that's what I had for my overview. That's a really quick overview, and I kind of went through it quickly so I could leave time for questions.
Thank you, Darhas, for sharing your research finding best practices with us. If anyone in the audience has any questions, feel free to ask. I'm sure I have several too I'd like to ask. We'll give everybody a second here to ask. You can type them in the comment section. Darhas, one specific one, if a company is looking for support, added features, better community engagement, how would you rank those four, right? From the community engagement, feature, support. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, so I would say from a support and feature engagement and activity point of view, Panel, Plotly, Dash, and Streamlit are all well supported. Quansight, actually Quansight supports all four. We work on all four for clients. But outside of that, Voila is backed by Quanstack, another company out of Europe. They are a little bit less active. Voila has not been actively developed in the last couple of years, but there's still a company behind it. Plotly Dash is very well supported by Plotly, and they have a commercial offering as well. And then Panel is supported by Anaconda and Quansight, and it also has a lot of community support as well. And then Streamlit recently got bought by Snowflake, and so it is also backed by a fairly large organization. So all I would say all but Voila have very strong commercial and open source support.
Oh, perfect. And then the best way to engage with an organization like Quansight to get new features added to their dashboard or to any of these, what's the best engagement model and suggestions you have there?
So there's a couple of options there, because one of the things is just getting people up to speed on using these tools, and a training engagement where we take some of your data and walk you through how your own data scientist and business analyst would use these tools to build dashboards yourself would be step one. All of these tools have a lot of existing features and cover a large part of what your organization probably needs. Now, if there are additional features you need, or if you want some complex dashboards built, we're happy to help you build those. And also, Quansight, we also put new features in the open source projects if they're needed by clients. And that can be, we work with the communities and with the other people building the product, building the applications to do that.
Thank you for letting us know. Any on licensing of these? Anything that people need to know? The different options on licensing and what's involved?
Yeah. So Voila and Panel are completely open source, and Streamlit as well, completely open source. Plotly Dash is also completely open source. There's no licensing, but Plotly Dash also provides an enterprise option that has some extra features around sharing of dashboards. And, if you want to use their service, they have a service around it. And some of their big data tools are behind that enterprise product. And I haven't checked recently, but I think, Streamlit was recently bought by Snowflake. And I've heard through the grapevine that there's going to be an integrated offering of some extra features of Streamlit inside Snowflake, but I'm not sure if that's really been announced yet.
Perfect. So I think for companies looking for training on each one of these, guidance, Darhas and his team are available. Also, if you're looking for additional features, I know Quansight rolls those out for the different products, as well as Snowflake and Plotly. So you can contact them for those. Any other questions from the audience? And so we appreciate your time, Darhas. We're coming up here on the 30 minutes. This is very insightful. We'll be publishing this presentation on TechShares, on Open Teams, and on Quansight as well. And we'll be sharing it on social media, publishing them on YouTube. We'll be sending you a email with the opportunity to meet up with Darhas and team if you have any specific questions on these and any of these platforms or any other open source needs. And Darhas, to finish, if you would like to talk about, share with everybody a little bit about Quansight. It's a partner of Open Teams, provide very much open source support for the PyData stack. But,
so in a nutshell, Quansight is a company specialized on the PyData and Jupyter open source stacks. We have a leadership role in the core projects which form the stack, like the Python Science Foundation and NumFocus. We're on the steering committees of places like that. And we have core maintainers and core contributors of over 25 to 30 plus of the core libraries like NumPy, SciPy, Scikit-learn, PyTorch. So all these libraries that form the foundation of the AI/ML and data science software stack. The people who build those libraries are employed at Quansight. So that gives us a much deeper knowledge of how to use these tools and to solve clients' problems. And so we lean heavily on our experience with open source and integrating open source inside organizations and integrating with that proprietary applications and all those kind of things. So that's our core focus, is how to use open source effectively to solve problems.
Thank you for that plug in the end. Appreciate your time, Darhas, and then we will resume TechShares shortly. We have an upcoming presentation by August Tagianto on coming up shortly hereafter. So we'll give a pause and then we'll resume shortly. Thank you.